In this video, I'm going to be explaining the reasons why Raul Rosas Jr. to beat Rob Font is a really good bet. And before I get into that, I just want to let you guys know that if you watch every UFC event live, you can basically get paid to watch the sport you love. Because as you can see from my stats here, I make a profit live betting this sport in 73% of months. So if you want to make some extra cash almost every month of the year, take a look at my website. You can find a link in the description below. On this homepage, you'll find tons of information about what I do and how I'm able to consistently make so much money betting this sport over such a long period of time. You can see I've been doing this for 10 years. So what I find with live betting on the UFC is that there are a lot of misconceptions. A lot of the time you guys will leave comments saying things like you can't live bet on the UFC because your stream is delayed, or you don't understand how it works, or you don't understand how I can be profitable on it when the odds jump about a move all the time. These are problems that I have solved for you, so you don't need to worry about any of this stuff. So if you do have any questions about live betting on the UFC, if you're thinking of giving it a try on Polymarket or one of your betting sites, just leave a comment below. I'll get back to all of you, answering any comments, concerns, questions you have, because trust me, if you just bet $100 per unit, my live betting group will pay for itself, and I think we're going to have a great year. As you can see, we've made a profit every single year that I've been doing this, and the next big leg up is loading here. You can see we're just about to get going. So if you consider all these dips we've had in the past, we had one here, we had one here, we had one here, had one here, and then the huge winning runs that follow, you're probably buying just in the start of a new big winning run. So get in on it, buy the dip, so to speak, and I don't think you'll be disappointed. I think you'll love it. Also want to say a big thank you to those of you that have joined in recent weeks. The group's filling up nicely, and I don't think it'll be too long before we are back at capacity. I do only offer 65 spaces. In fact, I need to update this. We've actually got less than 30 spaces available now. So yeah, limited spaces available, because obviously the more people that bet the same thing at the same time, the faster the odds decline and become suspended. So my live betting group is always very small, and for most of my history has been fully booked, fully signed up with no spaces available. So we will reach a point where the group's full very soon, and then when we reach that point, inevitably a lot of people want to join when they realize, oh shit, the opportunity's gone, and then it's too late, because once it's full, it tends to stay full for years, and we have to go to a waiting list system. So any comments, concerns, questions you've got about live betting with me, drop them below and I'll respond to all of them. I think it's about time. We broke down the fight between Rob Font and Raul Rosas Jr. And explaining why I think Raul Rosas Jr. is worth a bet here. So I will say this about this fight. Obviously, you guys watch my content every week. You will know that I don't love betting big favorites in MMA. In fact, if we go to the pre-fight betting dashboard, you can see the average odds of the bets that I've placed over the last 13 years have been 1.91. So I'm not the biggest fan of placing bets on big favourites, but every once in a while a fight comes along where there's just a whole bunch of reasons why I think it makes sense and why it's still a plus EV situation. The reason why I don't like betting fighters in this odds range is simply just because of the implied probabilities that come with their odds. So we can see that, you know, odds of 1.44 minus 227 for an implied probability of 69%. That means that in order to be profitable on these bets long term, realistically you need to hit a 75% win rate, which is extremely difficult to do. With, you know, when you think about how chaotic and random and crazy the sport of MMA is, flash knockouts, fighters just demonstrating really bad fight IQ, which costs them, you know, bad weight cuts, injuries, sickness. I mean, we saw Vinicius Oliveira fight a few weeks ago with a broken arm. It's a minefield. So from my perspective, that is the reason why I target the even money odds range, because for me, I know that if I can just win, you know, 56-60% of bets over the long term, if I can just win 60% of bets over the long term in this odds range, I'm going to earn a very nice long-term profit, whereas it's way harder for me to hit a long-term win rate of 75% on any odds range. Now, having said that, if we scroll down, you can see that I am profitable in this odds range over a really big sample size. So you can see that I have placed 308 bets in this odds range. My win rate is 72%. And that gives me an ROI of 5%. So ideally, I would have preferred a win rate of 75% in this odds range, because at 75%, you're close to break even on bets in the lower end of this odds range, and you're slightly profitable on bets in the higher end of this odds range. So a 5% ROI over a sample size of 308 bets over a 13-year period, it's very good. It is very good. There's no way to dress that up. It's very, very good. It's very consistent. But I am very selective with bets that I place in these odds ranges. You can see only 74 bets in this odds range and only 300 in this odds range. You can see far higher volumes in these better odds ranges. So that's the reason why I don't like betting in this odds range. It's just very difficult. It's just very difficult to be profitable. So I'm very selective with what I do here. So I'm going to be explaining the reasons why Raul Rosas Jr. I believe is a good bet. And let me know in the chat room on my website. Slide by the chat room. Looks like I'm logged out. Slide by the chat room on my website, or leave a comment below on YouTube and let me know how you feel about it. Let me know. Alright, let's get into it. So we'll start with the fighter comparison tool, which is where the reasons for betting Raul Rosas Jr. start to hit home. Now, we can see that Raul Rosas Jr. is 18 years younger than Rob Font. So that's such an extreme age gap. We don't even have statistics for that age gap. But we do know when there's a 10-year age gap in a fight, the younger fighter wins around 70% of the time. I would imagine it's similar in an age gap this big, although what I would say is that Raul Rosas Jr. is very young and very inexperienced, although he has shown me things in his recent fights that I like, that you don't see all that often in young inexperienced fighters. You know, Vince Morales had him in some really deep chokes, and he was able to defend them and didn't panic. And he's fought some tough guys like Arichi Leng, Ricky Tersios is no picnic, and he's just been tough enough to like take the shots. He's been damaged a bit, he's been busted up, but he's fought through everything that's been thrown at him, and he's a lot more reliable than most 20-year-old fighters that you get making their way in the UFC. So the age is a huge advantage for Raul Rosas Jr. in this fight, because you know he's going to be getting better from fight to fight, whereas 38 years old for a bantamweight is very old, and we know Rob Font is going to be declining a lot from fight to fight. Font has got a 4-inch reach advantage, which is nice. We know he uses length well. His jab is one of his best weapons. And if we look at the stats, it really tells the story of how these two match up. So Rob Font lands almost treble the amount of strikes per minute that Raul Rosas Jr. does. That's not surprising. Font is a striker. Raul Rosas Jr. is a grappler. They're both about the same in terms of accuracy. Font slightly better defensively, but then while Font lands treble the amount of strikes per minute, we can see Raul Rosas Jr. shoots treble the amount of takedowns per fight. Also notably, Font's takedown offense is very bad. I'm going to be showing you some footage of this so that you can start to understand the reasons for betting on Raul Rosas Jr. So 42% takedown offense, very, very, very bad. And if we look at the actual numbers on Rob Font's past fights, you could see that he only defended 3 out of 10 takedowns against Matsumoto, 3 of 7 takedowns against Davison Figueiredo, didn't stuff any takedowns against Corey Sandhagen. So with Raul Rosas Jr. being a strong, persistent grappler with good enough cardio to grapple hard for 3 rounds, I think it's just going to be very difficult for Rob Font to win this fight, because I don't see him being able to keep the fight standing for long enough to make his edge on the feet count. You know, there's no doubt that Rob Font is a significantly better striker, but I don't think that's going to mean much if he's spending most of the fight on his back or up against the cage defending takedowns. I think another thing that helps Raul Rosas Jr. in this one is that Rob Font's a volume striker. He's not a power puncher. If we bring his record back up, you can see he's very much a decisionator, right? 5 decisions in a row here. He knocked out Adrian Yanez, but prior to that, you know, he knocked out Marlon Moraes. But realistically, he's only got 2 wins by knockout in the last 8 years. So for the most part, he's a volume striker, and we know Raul Rosas Jr. is a tough kid. And on top of that, even though power's the last thing to go, Font is going to be getting less dangerous as he gets older. You know, the Yanez fight was 3 years ago. The Marlon Moraes knockout was 6 years ago. And so a flash KO is unlikely here. It's obviously unlikely Font would submit Raul Rosas Jr. He's just a pure striker. So then if we ask ourselves what are Font's realistic path to victory, he's going to have to outstrike Raul Rosas Jr., which is possible. But how much time is he going to have on the feet to do that when his takedown defense is only 42%? That would be my question. So I think this is going to be one of those fights where Raul Rosas Jr. is able to win 2 out of 3 rounds, sticking to Font like glue, going for the wet blanket strategy, outworking him, out-hustling him, causing him problems on the ground. That's how I see this one. And we'll bring up a little bit of footage to kind of highlight that. So if we bring up the Gene Matsumoto fight. Also, if you really like this tool and you're watching this video on YouTube, you can gain access to this tool for just $19.99 a month. Once you've joined my community on a contender tier membership, you just go to tools, go to UFC research tool, and for $19.99 a month you get the fighter comparisons, the records, you know, you get everything that you see here, the links to the fights. You know, if I just click this, it'll bring up the Matsumoto fight. So if you do want to save yourself a bunch of time researching UFC fights, if you do your own research, for $20 a month, you can get this really cool tool that will save you a bunch of time. Also, I forgot to mention, you also get these granular stats, where you can see the stats actually per fight. And if we hit the chevrons, we get even more detailed stats. There's not a whole lot of detailed stats there. If we bring this one up, you can see you know, how many strikes were landed to the head, to the body, in the clinch, if there are any strikes landed on the ground. We bring up the stats here, you know, all kinds of useful stuff, and plenty more tools you get for your membership as well as some new tools that will be coming soon that are currently in development. So anyway, yeah, this makes it very easy to find fights. So we'll bring up the Gene Matsumoto fight, and we will start taking a look at Rob Font's takedown defense. Here we go. So obviously we know the Font is going to have a huge advantage when it comes to striking. So we're only going to be focusing on his takedown defense in this one, or else the breakdown video is going to get super duper long. Very, very long. So up against the cage, we can see he's doing a good job of creating a nice wide base up against the cage, gets those double underhooks, stuffs the first takedown attempt from Matsumoto. All good stuff there. Does a really good job of using the cage to defend the takedowns from Matsumoto. Great job from Font. But as we know, the best way to get your opponent down is if you can shoot in very deep on their legs, and it's a better entry from Matsumoto, and as a result he's able to ankle pick Font on the right side. You see him grab the ankle there, ankle pick him, flatten him out, which is very, very nice. Now Font's obviously not in a terrible position here. He's relatively close to the cage, which he can use the wall walk back up to his feet, and Matsumoto is also giving him tons of space here to scramble back up to his feet as Font attacks the arm. Font doesn't use the space though to scramble back up to his feet, and instead allows Matsumoto to step over briefly in the mount, but then he gets the side control. So this is the first kind of issue that you'll see with Font. Here, obviously, he's close to the cage. Matsumoto's giving him a ton of space. what Font should be thinking about doing here is pushing off on Matsumoto with his feet, getting his back tight to the cage, and using the cage to scramble back up. We saw with the first takedown attempt that Matsumoto threw at Font, the Font's pretty good at using the cage to defend takedowns, but he didn't use the cage here. Instead, he committed to just hunting for long shot submissions with the arm, which just enabled Matsumoto to establish a dominant position and notably move Font even further away from the cage, which now makes it way harder for Font to use the cage to get back up. And still, you see here, Font is still hunting for this long shot Kimura or trying to hit a reversal off of Kimura. I don't know what he's doing really. He's just kind of screwing around instead of showing more urgency to get back up to his feet. And all these kind of mistakes are the things that will get him into trouble against Raul Rosas Jr. because we know Rosas Jr. has good grappling control, you know, slick back takes. He's very dangerous on the ground. He's physically imposing on the ground. And I think Font's windows of opportunity to keep this fight on the feet and win this fight on the feet against Raul Rosas Jr., they will be slim windows of opportunity. So whenever Raul Rosas Jr. does give him a bit of space to pop back up, he should take it. But instead, we've seen here, he's been fucking around on his back for about 2 minutes at this point, repeatedly just enabling Matsumoto to re-establish top position. And then eventually, with a minute left to go in the round, he decides to scramble over to the cage and use it to stand back up or start standing back up. But even then doesn't show a whole lot of urgency and gets back up right at the end of the round. But he should have been doing this. He should have been getting his back tight to the cage and scrambling back up 3 minutes ago, you know, not with 15 seconds left to go in the round. So there is a sequence where you do see a lot of the issues with Font. He also actually gets taken down right at the end of the round, just kind of picked up and dumped on the ground by Matsumoto. And so we'll move into round 2 now. Now, obviously, Matsumoto does tire out as the fight goes, which makes his grappling less effective. We can see here another nice entry, drives Font over to the cage, and there, again, Font demonstrates bad fight IQ. So we're talking about how Font made a lot of mistakes, you know, overcommitting to the Kimura in round 1, and here he basically pulls guard. Instead of getting his back tight to the cage and creating a nice wide base with his legs, like he did in the first round to defend the takedown, instead he just pulls guard here and invites Matsumoto on top of him. So inevitably Matsumoto frees his head, but here you see, you know, Font show a bit more urgency to use the cage to get back up to his feet here. So Font's eventually back up, but a nice little outside trip from Matsumoto to get him back down. So now, can you kind of see where I'm coming from with the reasoning for betting on Matsumoto in this fight? There's no doubt the Font has a huge advantage over Raul Rosas Jr. striking, just like here he has a huge advantage over Matsumoto striking. But his windows to score points are going to be so slim if Raul Rosas Jr. just does what Matsumoto is doing here and just sticks to him like glue. And we know Raul Rosas Jr. is a better grappler, a more physically imposing grappler than Matsumoto. So he can have far more success in these positions than Matsumoto can. Like, look here. Shoots in on a single leg, hits an outside trip, gets another takedown. And so if you think about it, right? So from this grappling position in round 2, there's 2 minutes 57 on the clock. And if we skip through to here when the next takedown attempt comes, you know, that's about a minute and 10, a minute and 20 seconds, right? On the feet. There's so much more time the Font is spending defending himself in these grappling positions. And it's really, really difficult for him to score enough to win rounds when he's spending most of the round defending the takedown. Do you know what? I was going to show you footage from the Figueiredo fight, footage from the Sandhagen fight, but I don't know if I need to. I feel I've made my point and I'm just going to be dragging this out. I mean, the breakdown video is already 20 minutes long. I mean, he gets taken down again here. I mean, we're only in round 2, right? Like, how much more do you need to see? I was going to show you a bunch of footage, but I think it would be overkill. What I would say to you is, if you don't think Raul Rosas Jr. is a good bet, and you want to do your own research, you know, go over to the research tool. watch his fights against Davison Figueiredo, Corey Sandhagen, and make your own mind up. But for me, you know, I just think it's a very tough fight for Font. So even though Raul Rosas Jr. is at a steep implied probability of 69%, when you throw into the mix the age gap, the fact that Font's on a steep decline, his takedown offense is bad, Raul Rosas Jr. has got the cardio to grapple hard for 3 rounds, he's got slick back takes, he's physically imposing on the ground, he's got good grappling control, he's tough. I just think it's going to be really hard for Font to win this. So I think Raul Rosas Jr. is a great bet. But slide by the chat room and let me know what you think, or drop a comment below if you're watching on YouTube. Let me know what you think. Hopefully he comes through for us, and hopefully, fingers crossed, he will add to our profits this week and keep this nice uptrend from 2026 going. We're doing good on pre-fight bets this year, 15 units of profit, and we're only 2 months into the year. This is brilliant. If we can keep this going, I would be absolutely buzzing with that. Very, very happy. Decent win rate as well. And these fight spreads absolutely crushing it at a win rate of 77%. Maybe we'll have a spread bet on this fight. Who the hell knows? So what fight should we break down next? We will leave this one, and we will leave this one for a future breakdown video. If you want me to break down these fights for you, please hit the like button below. And if we get 100 likes, we will drop breakdowns for these 2 fights. But I think we will move on, and we'll break down the matchup between Donte Johnson and Cody Brundage, because it is more of an interesting fight, in my opinion, than the odds suggest. So Donte Johnson's a 1.15 favourite, which is minus 683 for an implied probability of 87%. And Cody Brundage is a 5.68 underdog, which is plus 468 for an implied probability of 18%. So obviously, you guys know me by now. You've got to let the odds do the work for you with a fight like this. An implied probability of 87%. It's impossible to bet Johnson here. In order to bet Johnson, you'd have to give him a better than 90% chance of winning, which is impossible, because if we take a look at his record, you can see that we really don't know very much about him. He's only had 7 pro fights. His debut was against Sumaderi Dumas, but that fight ended in 6.5 minutes, and it didn't really tell us a whole lot. And then all of his pro fights before that have ended in round 1. So we've got no idea what his cardio looks like. We don't know how he's going to look if this fight goes into the 2nd round, the 3rd round. We know cardio is an area where Brundage has been improving big time. So this fight for me is a question of whether or not Brundage is worth a bet or not. And to be honest, this is one of those fights I haven't made my mind up on yet, because Brundage is actually very tempting to me, and I think these odds are very, very wide personally. If you want to see what I'm talking about, I'm not going to play this fight now, because it would just drag the breakdown out. But if you want to understand the reasons why I think Brundage is worth a consideration here, go and watch the 1st round of Johnson's fight against Sumaderi Dumas, where he gave up some cheap takedowns, made some big mistakes in some positions on the ground and up against the cage, and just generally looked pretty low level. And then go and watch Cody Brundage's fight against Eric McConaughey and also Mansour Abdulmalik, because Brundage is one of these guys that, you know, used to come out the gate hard and aggressive in the 1st round of his fights and then slow down very quickly and gas out. Whereas since he's improved his cardio, he has been improving. You know, he's reasonably dangerous on the feet now. We saw him rock Cam Rouston in his last fight. You know, he's tough, he's well-rounded, he's decent in grappling positions, he can fight at a decent pace for 3 rounds. And with Donte Johnson being very inexperienced, for all we know, his cardio could be absolutely terrible. Like, look at his record. You know, 6 of his last 7 have ended in round 1, and his last fight only ended very early into round 2. So if Brundage can take this fight into the 2nd and 3rd rounds, he could have a huge advantage. In terms of how they match up, Johnson looks more dangerous on the feet, he hits harder, he's more physically imposing, but we know Brundage is tough, we know he's durable. We've seen him hurt and rocked and wobbled in some of his recent fights. He was able to go into the 3rd round against Mansour Abdulmalik, which is not an easy thing to do. Abdulmalik definitely more dangerous than Donte Johnson. Johnson's grappling didn't look all that special to me. against Cedric Dumas. Like I said in the first round, he made a lot of mistakes, looked pretty low level. So this is one of those fights where I can't come to you and say, oh, you know, Brundage has got an advantage in this and that's the reason why you should bet him. If I were to bet Brundage this weekend, it would be basically taking a calculated gamble on the unknown, right? Because for me, Donte Johnson's an unknown. Very inexperienced. Has barely been past round one. Has only fought a very low level of opponent. Looked pretty low level against Cedric Dumas. You know, he could come out the gate hard Saturday night, KO Brundage dead in 30 seconds, and your money would be gone, right? None of us have a crystal ball. There's no way to know which way this fight's going to play out. But I do feel there's also a reasonably good chance that Donte Johnson, you know, is a bit shit, slows down, you know, after the first round, and Brundage finds a way to outwork him in rounds 2 and 3. I could definitely see that happening. The question is there a greater than 18% of that happening, right? Because if there's like a 25-30% chance of that happening, I think Brundage is worth a bet. Because then you'd have a brilliant, you know, almost 15% margin over the bookie. You know, 13 to 15% margin is great, absolutely great. So if I were to bet Brundage this weekend, it would be a very high risk bet, obviously. But this is certainly one of those fights where the odds do feel very wide to me, and it's worth a consideration. Like I said, I haven't made my mind up yet. But if you are a member of my community, we may be betting Brundage this week, and if we do, obviously I'll send you out an email notifying you as soon as I add the bet to our pre-fight betting dashboard. So haven't made my mind up yet. I'll probably wait till the weigh-ins and stuff, because with a fight like this, you know that it's going to be tough for Brundage, right? So what you don't want to do is take a gamble on him now, which is 4 days before the fight, and then he shows up, misses weight, looks shit, or you know, there's rumours that he's injured, or maybe it looks like he has a staph infection, right? You don't want to do that. You don't want to be putting your money in that position, because it's already weak enough as it is. We already need a bit of luck from the universe to stand a chance of winning this bet on Brundage. And so you don't want to put your money in a really strong position if he could potentially be compromised. So with bets like this, I tend to wait until the weigh-ins, and we'll see if there's any injury rumours or how he looks with the weight cut. And if all that's good, I'm a lot more likely to take a shot on Brundage. So if you want to be kept up to date on like the latest developments in what I'm doing, join the community. It's the way you get access to everything I do straight away. I can't put everything out on YouTube. It would be impractical to do the thumbnails, the descriptions, recording for every little action I take betting on the UFC. It's just not realistic. If you want to get access to everything I do quickly, in the moment, in real time, fast, and make a profit with me, you have to be part of my community. It's the only realistic way you can do it. But for now, I'm going to sit on the fence on this one, see how the week plays out, but keep an eye on it. Do your own research. Let me know what you think in the comments below if you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching on my website, if you're already a member of my community, slide by the chat and let me know if you think we should bet on Brundage or not. What do you think? I think it's now time that we broke down the next fight against Ricky Tersios and Alberto Montes, and I'm also just going to bring up another browser session here, because for some reason the odds on this one aren't loading, which can sometimes mean that the fight has been cancelled. So I need to double check that hasn't happened, because if it has, we will be wasting our time. Just bear with me a second. Didn't expect the odds not to load on the page, but we will find out shortly if the fight is still on. It appears that it is. It appears that it is. And so I will be able to use the betting calculator on the site to let you know the implied probabilities and all that sort of good stuff. So at the moment, Montes is around about a 1.53 favourite, which is going to be minus 189 for an implied probability of 65%. And the odds on Tersios are around about 2.58, which is going to be plus 158 for an implied probability of 39%. Very, very interesting. Very interesting. So 65% to about 38% on Tersios. Okay. So In terms of how these two match up from a stylistic point of view, this is going to be Alberto Montes' UFC debut. And so we can't really use the comparison tool to take a look at the stats because it's only one fight from the Contender Series that ended in about 7.5 minutes that contributes to those stats. So I will just break this one down based on what I've seen in their past fights. Now, there's not a whole lot of footage available on Montes because if you look at his record, a lot of his fights have ended quite quickly. So 7.5 minutes, 6 minutes, 2 minutes, 5.5 minutes, 2 minutes. And so the last time we got a really good look at Montes was all the way back in 2017 in this fight that went to a decision. So there's a lot of unknowns when it comes to Alberto Montes. There's a hell of a lot that we don't know about this guy. And that is something that makes me interested about Ricky Tersios because we do know a lot about Tersios. We know he has terrible fight IQ. We know he's very reckless on the feet. We know he does give up a lot of cheap takedowns, but we also know that he's tough as nails, he's an absolute dog, and he fights at a very high pace. And typically speaking, guys like Ricky Tersios tend to cause inexperienced fighters big problems because Montes, you know, up until this point in his career, would have faced a relatively low level of opponent, and with so many quick finishes on his record, he hasn't really been dragged through hell. And it's never easy to be dragged through hell in an MMA fight, but it's especially difficult to be dragged through hell in a UFC debut because you're already dealing with octagon jitters, performance anxiety, the stress and the pressure of finally making it to the big show. And Tersios is the kind of guy where you can throw anything you want at him, big shots, knock him down, put him in terrible positions on the ground. There's just no quitting him. He will keep coming forward. He is an absolute dog. He is an absolute warrior. And he's mean and he's vicious and he's nasty. Now, from a technical point of view, there are a lot of issues with Tersios. He is sloppy and bad defensively on the feet. On the ground, gives up a lot of cheap takedowns and loses position a lot. His fight IQ is bad. But he is reasonably capable everywhere. You know, he puts a lot of pressure on you on the feet. He's got like that Nate Diaz style on the feet where he'll just keep walking you down, keep getting in your face, keep forcing you to engage. And on the ground, he scrambles like crazy, fights at a high pace, and is a dangerous submission grappler, albeit he does spend too much time on his back for my liking. So this is one of the matchups that, from a technical point of view, Montes is better than Tersios everywhere. He's the more technical striker. And he's more positionally aware on the ground than Tersios, that does tend to give up position a lot. However, this is another one of those fights where the underdog does have me very interested, because if Tersios drags Montes into a war, and Tersios is good at dragging almost everyone he faces into a war, Montes' lack of experience could cost him here. I wish Tersios was a bigger underdog than he is. You know, he's around about a 2.58 underdog, which is an implied probability of 39%. In order for me to bet Tersios here, I would want to cap him at 50% to get like a 10-11% margin. I don't know if I can do that, which is the problem. Because if Montes does have the cardio and the mentality to go through hell with Tersios, he will likely win easily just by landing the cleaner, harder, more technical strikes and being more positionally aware on the ground. But out of all the fights I've researched this week, you guys know me, I love underdogs. I bet a lot of underdogs. Out of all the fights I've researched this week, Tersios is one of the most interesting underdogs to me. Because whereas when we were breaking down the Brundage fight, we're kind of betting against the unknown. We're kind of betting on Johnson being a bit shit past the first round, which is entirely possible after his first round performance against Enrique Dumas. But we don't know. Johnson could be amazing. We've got no idea. It's a speculative bet, playing the odds. With Tersios, we know that a lot of inexperienced fighters will struggle to go through the hell that Tersios will try to drag them through. So there are specific reasons for betting Tersios. The problem is the reward in the odds isn't as generous as it is on Brundage. And so you do have to be more careful with your capping. Can we get to 50% on Tersios? I don't know. I need to give this one more thought. I'm not sure if I'm going to bet Tersios yet. Again, if you're a member of my community, I will let you know. Again, this is probably going to be one I'm going to wait and see and make a decision on until after the weigh-ins. Because again, whenever you're dealing with these riskier bets like a Cody Brundage or a Tersios, they're already risky. So if they turn up at the weigh-ins on Friday and there's a hint they might have a staph infection or rumours they might be injured or they have a bad weight cut, then your money's in a, your money's already not in a super strong position. And then if those things are going against them, it's in a real weak position then, right? So you have to be very careful. And so, yeah, one of those fights where for now, probably going to give it a miss. For now. We'll see what happens come weigh-in time. Now let's break down the fight between Sumaderi versus Jesus Aguilar. So we can see Sumaderi is a 1.41 favourite, which is going to be minus 243 for an implied probability of 71%. And Aguilar is a 2.89 underdog, which is going to be plus 189 for an implied probability of about 35%. So this fight for me is quite a straightforward one. Sumaderi should win this very easily. Sumaderi is one of these fighters that has been on a rapid rate of improvement. He has been absolutely brilliant over the last few years. When he first came into the UFC, he was a little bit gassy, slowed down as fights wore on, was very bad on the ground, but now his takedown offense is great. He's difficult to hold down. His striking is very technical. He uses his length very well. Jesus Aguilar is a tough fucker. He is very tough, but he's a lot smaller than Sumaderi. There's a big size difference in this one, and Sumaderi uses length very well. So I don't want to spend too long on this one. Sumaderi is probably going to be safe for your parlays and your accumulators. He's very technical on the feet. He moves very well. Aguilar's a little bit of a one-dimensional boxer on the feet, and he's a lot smaller than Sumaderi. Sumaderi should light Aguilar up on the feet and neutralise the threat of Aguilar's grappling, be able to keep this fight standing and win pretty comfortably without too many issues. So I'm thinking of betting Sumaderi in some way this week. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to do it. Maybe throw him into a parlay with someone. I'm not sure, although there's no one else I really like enough to throw him into a parlay with me already betting big money on Mr. Max Holloway. So yeah, Sumaderi should win very easily. And that's pretty much all I've got to say on that one. So if you found this breakdown video useful, please hit the like button below. As soon as we get 100 likes, we will drop the next breakdown video, part 3, where we go through the Gregory Rodriguez versus Bruno Ferreira fight, as well as a few others, including Johnson versus Dober. So 100 likes on the video, and we'll drop that breakdown. Don't forget to check out my website, MMABettingTips.com, link in the description below. There's all kinds of amazing tools on there that you'll find very, very useful, and all kinds of good stuff, as well as a supportive community that really cares about you doing well and really cares about you making money on this sport. The MMA community can be very toxic. There's a lot of nice people online in the MMA community. It's very cutthroat, very competitive, and a little bit immature at times. So if you're serious about making money on this sport and you want people to support you, build you up, help you to do your absolute very best, come join the team, come hang out, and everyone is very positive, and we will do our best to help you take your profitability to the next level. And if you have a bad night, we'll all be there to pick you up, dust you down, and hopefully make you feel a bit better, because we've all fucking been there, and hopefully none of us are there Saturday night, but it's a part of the game, right? So thank you very much for watching. Take care. I'll see you in part 3 very soon. Please hit the like button. Nice one, guys. Bye.